News Channel 8. This is News Talk with Bruce DePoint.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. Great to be with you today, and great to be back with you here in the studio. Virginia Attorney General Mark Herring says the state will no longer recognize concealed carry permits for more than 24 other states. In a statement this week, Herring said, after months of research and evaluation, including extensive outreach to the 30 states whose permits Virginia currently recognizes, Virginia is revoking concealed handgun permit recognition with 25 states effective February 1st of next year, because their laws are not sufficient to prevent someone who is disqualified under Virginia law from receiving a concealed handgun permit. These states, therefore, do not meet Virginia standards for issuance of a concealed handgun permit or for recognition of such permits. Joining us now here on News Talk, Michael Pope, a reporter for WAMU 88.5. He covers Virginia politics for the station. Welcome back. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
This is big news, and it has not gone unnoticed, even in a week when people's attention is focused on other things, on the holidays and on all of that. There's been a lot of pushback and reaction to what the Attorney General has done. Let's begin with why he made the decision he made.
Well, from the Attorney General's perspective, these 25 states have lax gun laws. You know, in Virginia, in order to get a concealed carry permit, you can't have a background with stalking, for example. If you have some sort of drug dealing conviction, you can't get a concealed carry permit. If there's some sort of background of mental health treatment, this has been in the news lately, you can't get a concealed carry permit. So the Attorney General's office did this systematic review of all 30 of these states where Virginia currently accepts these, and found 25 of them just didn't meet the snuff, weren't as good as Virginia's. And so from his perspective, Virginia, well, he's now made this determination that Virginia will no longer accept these concealed carry permits from 25 states, which include neighboring states, North Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee. These permits will no longer be accepted in Virginia as a result of the Attorney General's decision, executive decision, bypassing the General Assembly, which goes into effect on February 1st.
And what's the reaction been?
Well, as you might imagine, people that are gun advocates are totally opposed to this. The Republicans feel like Herring has a history of sort of overstepping his bounds in terms of executive action. You may remember, Bruce, earlier this year, there was lots of back and forth about the Attorney General making executive decisions on in-state tuition for undocumented students. He made another executive action that was very controversial on not recognizing Virginia's ban on same-sex marriage. That's now a moot point because of the Supreme Court decision. But so the Attorney General has a history of taking very bold executive actions, which, as you might imagine, people in the legislature do not like.
And the Virginia Assembly is controlled by Republicans. And Virginia is a state where there's a significant hunting and sportsman tradition. And so for people who view themselves to be law-abiding citizens, anything that runs contrary to what they believe is a fairly robust Second Amendment set of rights, they view negatively.
The gun advocates have very powerful supporters in the General Assembly. If you think back to the most recent General Assembly session, the governor outlined a number of gun control measures he wanted to see happen this year in Virginia. None of those passed the General Assembly. They were all killed in a subcommittee. And so the General Assembly has been sort of a stopping point, really, for any kind of gun control. This conversation with the Attorney General has prompted another round of potential legislation that we're going to probably see in the upcoming General Assembly session. Two measures specifically. One would essentially get rid of concealed carry permits altogether. Arizona and Alaska already don't have concealed carry permits. I mean, their logic is, you know, if you can own a gun, you should be able to walk around with it concealed if you want to.
So those states don't envision a two-step process, one to have the gun and a second to carry under your jacket or what have you.
Right. And so the other legislative issue that has already has a sponsor is this issue of universal reciprocity. This is something that actually comes up every year in the General Assembly, which is basically if you have a concealed carry permit anywhere, that permit should be legitimate in Virginia. And so it would be sort of moving in the other direction, of course, as what Herring has done. The problem is we've had a Democratic governor who would never sign that. So I was speaking actually to a Republican this morning about trying to get reaction.
And the numbers aren't there for an override, we don't think.
We don't think. We'd have to see the legislation and what the vote was, but I suppose theoretically that's possible. It doesn't seem like the numbers would be there.
Yeah.
So I was asking a Republican about this morning, and I said, okay, so you feel like the Attorney General has overreached his executive authority. What's the remedy for that? His response was, we have to win at the ballot box. So Mark Herring is running for re-election as Attorney General, and so he already has a Republican opponent, Rob Bell. And I can guarantee you this issue of concealed carry permits will be at the top of the agenda in that election.
If Attorney General Herring has overstepped the bounds of his office, in other words, if this isn't just unwise policy from the Republican perspective or from the robust Second Amendment perspective, I mean, the electoral thing is always there. Obviously, elections have consequences, and these issues that you might lose on one day, you can win by changing the math in the assembly or by getting a governor elected. But there's also the option of taking a constitutional officer like the Attorney General to court. And it doesn't sound, at least for now, as though that issue is, that possibility is particularly likely. Maybe that will change.
We haven't heard any talk about that.
Of course, all this has just happened.
You know, there's another scenario where a gun advocate from, let's say, North Carolina wants to test this and comes into Virginia with a concealed carry permit and does some sort of act of civil disobedience. It gets involved in the court system, and there is a legal challenge that's brought, by an advocate, a citizen. So that's another scenario that may play out. There has also been talk, hasn't really gone all that far, about impeaching Herring because of, his executive, what they consider his executive overreach.
Let's open the phone. We have several more minutes with Michael Pope, reporter for WAMU 88.5. Let's open the phones and talk about the issue of weapons that people can go out in public without other people knowing that they have it. The whole notion of concealed carry and this action by Virginia Attorney General Mark Herring to say to 25 of the 30 states whose concealed carry permit schemes they recognized until now, essentially, 25 of those 30 will no longer have a reciprocity beginning February 1 of next year. Phone lines open, 703-387-1020. It's the number at the bottom of the screen. If you're watching in the 11 a.m. hour and wish to take part in the conversation, we hope you will do so. We'll go to the phones as your questions and comments come in. Tennessee has already taken notice of this. And they have said that if it's not going to work the one way, they're threatening that it won't work the other, hoping that the Attorney General will reconsider. Well,
yeah, so there are a number of states that have said, okay, Virginia, we're not going to recognize your concealed carry permits either. So there are actually the numbers work out to about 500,000 gun owners in Virginia, with the numbers of 420,000 Virginians will no longer enjoy reciprocity in 6 states. That's as a result of this. So it works both ways. Reciprocity is not just we are going to recognize North Carolina's permits. It sort of goes the other way as well.
And getting a little deeper into the Attorney General's decision, into the review that they did and why they put the 5 of the states on one list and the bulk of the states, 25, on another. There's not time to read all of the things, but looking at a couple of them gives you the flavor for what the Attorney General and his team were after. For example, he says, Virginia's concealed handgun permit law includes a number of disqualifiers and safeguards designed to prevent potentially dangerous or irresponsible individuals from being able to lawfully conceal handguns, such as an individual who has been ordered by a court to receive outpatient mental health treatment, and on and on. An individual who is subject to a restraining order or a protective order. An individual who's been convicted of stalking or has a pending stalking charge. An individual who's been convicted of any assault and battery, sexual battery, discharging of a firearm or brandishing a firearm within the 3-year period. And then it goes on to talk about felonies, 2 or more misdemeanors, who's addicted to or is an unlawful user or distributor of marijuana, synthetic cannabinoids. So, I mean, for people looking at this issue, there may be a rational basis for what the Attorney General has done.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually speaking to a Northern Virginia Republican who, in theory, sort of agrees with this in terms of they feel like, Virginia actually has kind of a high threshold for having a concealed carry permit for all the reasons you were just saying. These are all restrictions that have been added over the years by the General Assembly. And so it's actually more difficult to get a concealed carry permit in Virginia than in many other states, which is why we've seen 25 of them make this cut. So, from the systematic review here that the Attorney General's office did of all the other gun laws in all these other 30 states, they felt like 25 of them just weren't as good as Virginia's.
To the phones, line one first. Hello, Jerry. Thanks for calling in. You're on the air. Go right ahead, please. Hey, Jerry, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Thank you.
You're on the air. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, I have a question as far as this whole issue. How is this any different than states recognizing a driver's license, an insurance policy issue, or a Medicare card issued by the federal government or the state governments? And then the second part is in the restriction on interstate commerce as prohibited by the Constitution.
Jerry raises some interesting issues, and of course you can get married in one state, move to another. You don't have to get married again. Your marriage is considered legal in the state to which you move. So there's a lot here, and Jerry makes an interesting point. Yeah,
well, at the heart of that question is the authority. Does the Attorney General really have the authority to do this? And that's something that Republicans are really angry about. It seems like the Attorney General keeps making these executive moves, and they wonder, where's the code section to say that you've got the authority to do this? And so, right now they're not talking about a lawsuit, but there is likely some kind of legal challenge that might emerge to any of these executive actions that the Attorney General has done.
Fascinating action, and as we've been saying here, it is likely to be something that lawmakers consider when they reconvene in Richmond after the first of the year, and it'll be grist for the political mill as well. Michael Pope, reporter for WAMU, covers Virginia politics extensively. Always great having you here. Thanks very much for your time. Have a great holiday.
Thank you. You too.
We will talk to you in the lead up to the Assembly's 2016 session, I am sure. When we return, advertisers' efforts to influence consumers like you.